Hey friends, thanks for just a few moments as we head into this 10-day period leading up to Pentecost, a time to yield ourselves and expect that as we do so, God is going to bring the harvest, to yield the harvest. And know that that means we get to partner with God in some really incredible ways. It's something that should be happening on an ongoing basis in various forums and times and different spaces, but one where we can take some extended time. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about fasting to kind of maximize some of our time together. And Jesus modeled this for us. We see how he was filled with God's Spirit and at the day of his baptism, where the Holy Spirit came on him like a dove. And it says immediately he was drawn by the Spirit out into the desert for 40 days. And he didn't have food during that time, and he was very hungry. And of course, he experienced the temptation from the enemy, from the devil during that time. But by connection with the Father, holding fastly to the Word and knowing God's heart, he withstood. Awesome. And it says that he left that place filled with the Spirit and the power of the Spirit. When he came down from his transfiguration, where he had Peter, James, and John with him, they came down to a person who was possessed by demons, and the disciples couldn't cast it out. And Jesus came and cast it out and said, the disciples asked, why couldn't we do that? And he said, some demons only respond to prayer and fasting. There's a level of intimacy there and connection there that was partnered with that. So with that being said, I wanted to just encourage you, obviously on an ongoing basis, but during this 10-day period to consider some form of fasting, whether you get to join us for all of our gatherings, there's 8 of them total, or whether it's by yourself, that you could benefit from the practice of fasting. What could that look like? Obviously, there's the food portion of that, and some people will fast for a meal or a couple meals, and maybe do that during the course of the 10-day period, where maybe breakfast and lunch are meals that you don't have during that time, and you eat again in the afternoon or in the evening, and to just be reminded of that posture of craving after God, right? It could mean that you take maybe extended days. Some of you have practiced fasting for longer and know that you can take maybe a day or 2 or whatever to fast. Or maybe instead of just doing a water-only fast, you take a protein drink or a fruit drink, something that gives you some kind of vitamins, but you're still hungry. Maybe you know your body needs that, and right now it can't handle not eating for periods of time. You need those nutrients, and obviously be wise in what that looks like. What I would encourage you to do is sit with the Lord and ask him, Lord, what would it look like to fast during that time? And then listen, and maybe invite someone else in. Maybe you're married and you want to ask them, I'm thinking of fasting, what do you think? Get some counsel in that. If you don't feel like you have anybody to ask and you need somebody, call me. Call one of our elders. Reach out and say, hey, I've been thinking about fasting. Would you just talk with me through this and pray with me through this? It'd be a great way to discern what God would have for you. Another aspect of fasting could be go beyond food and could say, I'm going to stop from these entertaining things or using technology, from the endless scrolling or binge watching shows. I'm going to actually not do that during this period at all. And it's going to force me to be a little uncomfortable, and maybe I'll take some extra time to be in prayer for that in that time and some worship. Okay? But ultimately the goal is to say in our hearts, God, I am serious about seeking after you. I want to yield myself to you. I want what you want. And so here's a quick pattern that you could use, as you spend time with Jesus. Ultimately, it's not just about stopping, eating or stopping these hobbies, but getting to know Jesus more, hearing his voice and partnering with him. So here's 3 scriptures that I want you could use, or I encourage you could use. One is Psalm 24, what essentially says, who can ascend the holy hill? Who can be in God's presence? And it says those who have pure hands, clean hearts, clean hands and a pure heart. What does it look like to confess? And that would lead us into Psalm 139, which says in verse 23 and 24, Search me, O God, know my heart, test me, try me, know my thoughts. See if there's any grievous way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. That would be a prayer to sit with and ask the Lord to search you so you could be cleansed. And then lastly, an encouragement would be to read Psalm 119. We learned that Jesus is the Word, right? The living Word. And Psalm 119 is all about, loving the Lord, his statutes, his commands, his rules, his laws, and it uses any number of words, but essentially it's God, I know you and your ways are the best. And that whole Psalm 119, and that's a long one, says that. And it's broken up into 8 verse sections. So maybe you say, I'm going to focus on one of these sections and pray and listen and see what God has to say. Now that's obviously a way that you could just start your time, or could be your time altogether. But just as a suggestion for you, might be a little bit of a starting point so that you don't get overwhelmed with, where do I even start? And I pray that it would encourage you, that you would be strengthened in this, and it would be a part of maximizing this time that we have with Jesus, by ourselves, but together as well. I'm attaching to this email in this post the times that we're currently together, and I hope you can make at least one and maybe more of those as we get together to seek the Lord during this time.